Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes.
Welcome back to the channel here on the Shuffle Squad. We're going to be providing you one more meta forecast before we get to our last North American regionals. We're going to be talking about Santiago regionals coming up this weekend, but in case you're not going to Santiago regionals, you can still max out your championship points at any cup or challenge. So all this information will be pertinent for you because the meta has changed significantly since last weekend. We can kind of talk about that and go back. But before we do and hop into that information, I'm going to show you my lovely guest that I have here for this meta forecast. We're going to start off. Collin, why don't you introduce yourself and let the people know where they should know you from?
What's going on? My name is Collin Merli-Matthews. You should know me for that Mew guy that you see that played it for 1,000 years.
Yes.
Had some pretty decent accomplishments. You got top 8 and top 4 this season. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Pretty easy.
It's fine. We'll find you another deck one of these days, Collin.
One day. Chien-Pao's been pretty fun.
All right. And then we also have Ian joining us from the TSS side. So Ian, where should the people know you from? And introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's Ian, of course, from the Shuffle Squad, a longtime player. Recently I top-8 Indianapolis Regionals, and I've won Regionals, every season apparently. So hopefully I have one more to hopefully keep that streak.
There we go. We love to see it. So both of these guys know what they're talking about when it comes to decks, so definitely going to want to stick around for their opinions and thoughts on what we have to cover for you. And to slow it down just a little bit, the first topic that we're going to have to talk about, and I know not everybody's favorite deck style, is going to be the control and stall archetypes that we see. Obviously, Azul winning the regionals this past weekend. We actually had 2 winners playing Snorlax stall. Pretty similar lists. I know it's been kind of going around a little bit. It's one of my favorite decks of the format. I switched off of Lasso and Giratina to start playing control and stall midway through the season, and I really, really loved it. Demolished some league challenges and cups with them. So let's talk about it first. So we'll go over to you first, Collin. Let's talk about your feelings on stall in the meta right now. What do you think of Azul's winning list too?
I think my opinion on stall is I still think it's not going to be a crazy. I think it'll go up, give an uptake, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy. I don't think it's gonna be anything crazy, insanely high.
Yeah, so, not a 22% meta share.
No, definitely not. No. I would not overly tech for Stall. Just not an idea. I do think his list is pretty interesting. I think they kind of nailed it right with this one. Obviously, if Azul won, I mean, it's a smaller regional. Not disregarding that, but
right.
Still, so we don't expect anything less out of Azul.
Right. And then hopping over to you, Ian. What do you think of the stall archetype in general, and do you think that it's better or worse than the Pidgeot control that we've seen dominate a lot of these online tournaments as well?
So I think it really matters what matchup you want to do well against, because the Snorlax is very good against Charizard and Chien-Pao. My Pidgeot is very good against those, but it's not the same level of favored. Let's say it's 5-10% more for Snorlax. So I think that's the reason why I saw people shift Azul from Pidgeot for Indianapolis and changed over to Snorlax for Stockholm, because there's a lot of Chien-Pao.
Right. And I think that we also saw the shift. A lot of players beforehand with the Pidgeot controls shifted out of playing a Noivern EX in there to the Wigglytuff, and that's kind of been the going list now just because Wigglytuff is huge. And I honestly think that those don't matter in a lot of the high-end matchups, those high numbers that we're seeing in these tournaments, the Charizards, the Chien-Paos, we had the Lost Zone Giratinas, we had all kinds of other things that were popping up as those high meta shares, and I really just don't think that it's pertinent anymore just going straight Snorlax stall. I really did like the take that they had where they're playing the higher Airy count in these lists. And I think that Airy is a very strong card, and we've seen it adapted into a lot of these other lists. Arceus control is one that comes to mind. Arceus, not meant for being a very versatile deck when it comes to the supporter counts. in there you really just want to find your Arceus and attach to it and do your thing. But now we're seeing more and more Aries come in here. And you're also seeing the Sharon's Care populate in here. So let's talk a little bit more about the control side of Arceus in here. We'll go back to you, Ian. Let me hear your thoughts on Arceus control overall. Do you like it? Do you think that it's something we'll see more and more of?
That's not a deck I'm really a big fan of, because yes, Eerie can be good against Chien-Pao sometimes, the same against Charizard. The problem is that your opponent can either, if they're playing Charizard, you Eerie them, but they can sound like rare candy anyways.
Right.
And against Chien-Pao, still a little slow. While I still think Arceus Giratina is better, just because Giratina VSTAR and Iron Leaves are very good against Charizard, and that deck's favorite against Charizard, unlike the Airy build.
Right. Very cool. And I agree with that too, is that Airy is good in those opening turns. I think that maybe that's why the higher count in the Snorlax builds is going up. But the Arceus decks, I don't know if I can see the full potential in those style of decks. Arceus is already clunky. Kind of just making it clunkier. But I can see like maybe in a vacuum where those cards would be a little bit better. Now, another tech card I want to talk about, and we'll go back to you, Collin, here on this one. We saw Sandshrew come into play, and I actually have one sitting on my desk here. So we've got the Sandshrew that's got the sand screen ability that if you have to read this specifically to know exactly what it does. I could see a lot of people picking it up, trying to read it. It says trainer cards in your opponent's discard pile can't be put into their deck by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter cards, which means that Silene is shut off with this, and also Palpad is shut off by Sandshrew. So you think Sandshrew in these control archetypes is going to see more play going forward in these next couple of regionals?
I would. I mean, if they keep on tending with a heavier airy count, then like I think so. I think that'd be a valid thought.
Okay.
Just to make it solidify, like, especially if Chien-Pao still sees a high tick, like it does have a favorable Chien-Pao matchup already, but on top of that, like you just can guarantee, like, okay, get rid of this, and now you never have it again with your Silene, like,
right.
So I think the Sandshrew would probably be expected further going further.
Gotcha.
Going forward. Oh my god.
Now, as a Chien-Pao player, are you really scared of the Sandshrew here?
It looks really annoying for sure. Like this little dude on the bench says I can't use my Silene actually, like, rare candies that you eat away are my superiors, and like, or like even trying to use a cologne again if you stick a Mimikyu, like,
right,
like that's kind of annoying. But I still don't think I still think like controls is not going to be as super like heavy like heavier represented. So
okay. Very cool. So we can kind of move on from stall, and we know that obviously it's kind of like that sine wave where sometimes it does good, sometimes it doesn't. People know about it, people don't know about it. But this is about a deck that people have known about for a while, and I know that both of you probably have some opinions on it. We did see quite a bit of it in the regional through Stockholm here, and I've seen a lot more of it pop up as time progressed throughout the week here too. And the deck we're going to be talking about is Lost Zone Box. Now, Comfy giveth and it taketh away as well. We have lots of flower selecting gone wrong, but I think that the lists are becoming a little bit more refined. So let's go back to you, Ian. I know that you had some opinions on Lost Box, so I want to hear your take on it right now.
So actually, his deck I was going to 100% play for LA until it did very well in Stockholm. It's very well positioned right now, because the thing is, what it does, and just like how stuff like Sableye, Cram plus Iron Hands plus Mew lines up against Charizard, it's very good. And you're favored against that, along with Chien-Pao, especially when they weren't playing Manaphy, because the only way you really lost, especially when we were playing Manaphy, was they had to hit a turn 2 Iron Hands as Chien-Pao going first, and that's really tough. I still believe the deck is a very good play going forward and for LA, just because it's the best deck for beating, not the best, like beating best two, but one of the best. And it just has a lot of utility Pokemon and powerful cards like Iron Hands, which can allow you to really beat any deck.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, it likes Patriarch control, so that's good.
I'd say that one of the bigger reasons now too, because like I said, we're seeing a lot more of these stalls come out as these rogue decks, right? They're not a huge meta share, but there's something you still have to be cautious about. And there's a lot of switching elements that are in Lost Zone box. And I think that makes it really good. Plus, you're right. I think that it takes a really good Charizard matchup with the way that I've seen it build. As of recently, you have the Radzard, you've got the Iron Hands in there to take out the one prizers to, go on to even prizes you want to continually trade. And there's been a lot more Roaring Moon decks. I think even Brent Tonneson played a Lost Zone deck with double Roaring Moon EX in it. So just to hit into something like that, it's a really consistent deck. What do you think about Roaring Moon, Collin, in a Lost Zone deck? Do you think that that's the wave? Maybe we're playing a little bit heavier into just knocking big things out?
I think like having like an automatic nuke is just always just good. Like just
Mhm.
being able to KO a Zard out of nowhere and like being able to kill anything that's just like even killing hits Riccardi for weakness. That's a poor
Right.
example.
Yeah.
But like hitting like an actual like hard number to hit, like like on auto nuke and it just ends the game because you have a better route against Zard. So I think you want to respect that. So
Gotcha. And are you a fan of the Radiant Charizard in a list, or more of a fan of Radiant Greninja in a list?
I would probably want to play Greninja just for consistency, like being able to just
Yeah.
draw it through your deck because you want a huge hand. Like Zard's really good for Zard's a really good attacker, but you struggle a little later just because you don't have a Greninja to try and help bail you out of like any sort of disrupts. So I'd rather play Greninja personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And from somebody that's played Lost Zone Giratina, Ian, I've seen a few more decks that are just, either single prize Lost Zone decks or teching in those utility Pokemon like the Shaman V, the Roaring Moon EX. They're playing higher counts of things like Roxanne. And that's a supporter card that we've kind of seen fall to the wayside a lot. I mean, obviously, Iono builds are the wave of the future here, where Iono is a staple card in the majority of decks, just to get that disruption. But Roxanne seems to be played in quite a few of these decks that were topped at Stockholm Regional. So what do you think about adding a little bit more Roxanne to help you out of those tight spots in these Lost Zone decks?
So in Turbo, I actually really don't like that card in general.
Mm-hmm.
The one of is fine just because like you need a fifth draw supporter is the thing, and you don't really want to play Professor's Research in your deck.
Right.
So yes, you can play the one, but I still don't really like it because the problem is that Roxanne won't be almost ever your flower selecting choice.
Mm-hmm.
Always the joke I have is if you play one Roxanne, it gives you easy flower select because you're always lost owning it.
Right.
Like you just have there's never a situation except for your opponents at 3 prizes where the card is or 3 prizes or less. Like you're ever going to pick it off of flower selecting. So while I feel you did play 1, the card's not all that good. Like I don't think it's ever worth playing 2 because you're at most playing 1 a game, and if you just lost on it, it's not a big deal.
Right, exactly. Now, you kind of talked about something in there, the Mew EX. This is another card I kind of wanted to go back and forth on. I feel like Mew EX might be a little fake, but Mew EX and Lost Zone boxes will go to you first, Collin, because you're the Mew enjoyer, right? So
fair enough.
Mew EX obviously takes 1 attachment, 1 Mirage Gate. You can copy your opponent's attacks. Also has free retreat in a Lost Zone box deck. Do you like this card? Do you not like it, and why?
I don't know how I think it's okay. Like I think the ability just to copy any attack is good. Like you can if you get late game, like it gives you another out instead of having only Roaring Moon as the answer. You could like copy Infernal Darkness or Burning Darkness. Sorry, Burning Darkness. You can copy that late game. You can copy it. Like you just copy anything. So that's super good. It's also the pivot's really nice, and the restarts ability if you get disrupted, like it's kind of able to like, try and dig through a little bit, get you another out. So I feel like okay with it. I don't see like I see why you wouldn't want to play it, but I also see why it would be good, why it's good in its own way.
Yeah, and also having the dark weakness is a red flag for me.
Yeah, it is 180 HP though, so it's gonna get knocked out by a lot of things too.
Exactly. So it seems like a lot. I get the free retreat, but I mean, you could always play a rescue board, just instead. Now we've seen a couple of different tools adapting in these Lost Zone lists, and this will probably be the last topic we cover on how Lost Zone lists are adapting going forward. We do see the super effective glasses kind of coming out of those utility lists. Ian, are there any other tools that you're seeing coming back into Lost Zone lists that weren't there before. We just briefly mentioned Rescue Board. What tools do you like in your Lost Zone box list?
Only just Rescue Board and Forest Sealstone. I don't think anything else has enough utility. The only card I even like possibly could play is also this a Technical Machine Crisis Punch.
Okay.
One thing I actually kind of like right now is Lost in Giratina is a Technical Machine Evolution. Because it's a way to make the Chien-Pao matchup better. But for more turbo builds, it's really just Rescue Board and Forest Sealstone.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the TM Devo is cool, but you also have to get to that point where, you know, your board has to be strong enough to come up to a Greninja, maybe canceling Cologne. You still have to place damage counters with Sableye and then Devo afterwards. So it's a little bit more of a reach. Definitely cool to have. But, you know, against Charizard, TM Devo just seems like too much of a stretch when you can just go in and bop something. So that's my take, at least on the tools in Lost Zone lists going forward. So just evaluate that if that's what you're going to play this weekend coming up. Let's talk about another deck, and we were just talking about it now, is Chien-Pao. Now, Chien-Pao seems to be in one of the strongest positions it has been in a while in the meta right now, because people are kind of leaning off. Maybe they're bored of playing Charizard a little bit more than they have in the past couple weeks. They wanted to try the other pill. They want to go from the red pill to the blue pill, play Chien-Pao. And it actually is way more skill intensive and expressive than we originally had imagined it to be. So let's go to you, Collin. I know you've been playing Chien-Pao. What are your thoughts on Chien-Pao right now?
I think Chien-Pao is still pretty good. I think the uptake of Lost Box is pretty bad for it because, like as Ian said earlier, it is really hard to get turn 2 Iron Hands. It is really difficult. But I still think Chien-Pao is like a very solid deck. It is very like skill intensive, and it is very punishing. If you mess up like even like a little bit, like you can get punished super hard, and like then you can possibly lose the game because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the ways that you're adapting your list based on how the meta is right now? Are you taking out Silene? Are we scared? We're just adding more consistency cards.
I would still probably play this Eileen. Like I think the stall plus like the Sandshrew isn't gonna be as too heavy to where I would want to take it out. I think like just the random Eerie of like if we hit more of the Arc deck,
sure,
the Arc control deck plus like Charizard still playing it once in a while. Like I think like the Silene helps a lot with those instances where they get like one Eerie off and it's like okay.
Yeah,
and then you can recover. You can at least recover from it, or like a really bad one, because you don't want to get Eerie out of double rare candy. So I'd still want to play Silene, sadly. But I hate that card, but it's so good. That's the only reason.
Right? Yeah. I mean, double Prime Catcher in a game sounds fantastic all the time.
Oh yes.
So doing that, and then you know there are the greats of C-Pow. We have the CEOs of C-Pow. I mean, we've got we've got Jared Grimes, we've got Grant Shen. You know, there's many others to name, and so I'm sorry if I didn't bring him up. Reagan Retzloff comes to mind here. Reagan's been grinding that deck for some time. So, Ian, if we're looking at these builds, it seems like they have the 60 flushed out. Do you think that there's any change? I've seen some things like a 3/3 Beaverell line to up the consistency, maybe a couple more Cypher Maniac, anything like that you'd be interested to see.
I absolutely hate Kissing Clone.
Okay.
To be quite honest, I think that card is a win more card, which means that if you are in a position where Cancel Clone's actually going to be useful, then why are you really using it? You're already ahead. Right. Like, that's the thing. Because you already need to find two 1-ofs for it to work. So that's Prime Catcher plus Cancel Clone. Like, if you're placed, I would say it's like Prime Catcher plus something else. It could be an Earthen Vessel. It could be another consistency card. You're probably fine anyways. Like, your biggest hurdle, Chien-Pao, is just going to be setting up, so being able to get past that hurdle, you don't really need Canceling Clone. Like the list that I've been playing, for example, I know the lists that are very popular. I know like Reagan, all of them have been playing is one Earthen Vessel. I play 2 in the list. I don't play Canceling Clone, the one I've been playing, just because I really don't like Canceling Clone overall. And the utility it has is only for Manaphy. Like technically it's Mimikyu, but you can just harder to treat anyways. Like the minus, it's gonna be you lose on 2 energy, which isn't that big of a deal. So that's the only big thing. Because the problem is there isn't enough space in the deck to really add anything else. Right. So the only real like flex slot, in my opinion, is like the Canceling Clone.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people adapt and kind of put either, a counter catcher in that spot or a boss's orders in that flex spot, just because you can get Iron Hands out and still take 2 prizes, and you don't even need Greninja in a lot of situations. And just having that gust effect to do that, you can potentially take out a Manaphy. So I definitely can see where your head's at, removing the canceling clone in future lists for these bigger events for sure. But I mean, everyone's already still afraid that there is a canceling clone, so they're expecting it. So I mean, changing the lists, I don't think will affect gameplay as much as it will. You're right, consistency overall, just finding that consistency card. Is there anything that you would put in to up the consistency other than the vessel, or that's just kind of it?
That's really it, unfortunately. There's not much to do with the deck. Like, you play an Iono over a Cypher Maniac, or Cypher Maniac, but the problem with that is that if you draw Iono after turn 2, the card's just so much worse than Cypher Maniac.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen that too. I've even seen, there was people talking about the Ditto, right, from 151, but to get it into the active spot, it's already a stretch on that first turn to make sure that it shows up on time. And just doing that. Collin, going to you, there's been some builds playing 2 Chien-Pao EXs and some builds playing 3 Chien-Pao EXs. Which one would you say is more correct?
I think the 3. It's also been obviously this part of the 60 that the whole Chien-Pao board has been playing pretty much. I think the 3, because you want to lead it like 99% of the time to start getting your water energy out, because you need to, in order for you to actually do plays, you need a lot of energy. So I think starting is too important. So I would still want to play the 3. This makes it more consistent. So
awesome. So the next thing that we have on our agenda to talk about in this meta here is going to be Lugia. Now, I know that a lot of people hate this deck. A lot of people love this deck because it does have consistency issues. I'm not going to lie. And there's a lot of things going around trying to stomp this deck into the ground. And there are some cards that are going to make it better coming around to NAIC. I know we're jumping the gun a little bit here.
A whole lot better.
A whole lot better. So Lugia, people have been talking about it because Snorlax has been showing up. It can beat Snorlax if you play it correctly. It takes a pretty good Charizard matchup as long as you can set up all of these adjacent things that seem to happen, the gameplay. Now, Ian, you played a beatdown style of Charizard deck where you really wanted to just smash things that played EXs into the ground because you played that max belt in there and you have maximum consistency. So talk to me about what you think about Lugia VSTAR in the meta right now.
So I absolutely hate the deck. I think it's unplayable currently. Okay. You're working way too hard for too little. I have a rule about decks where if I think that your best draw involves too much and you're not guaranteed to win, then the deck's probably not all that good. That's exactly it for Lugia. Like, if you get a perfect setup, you're not even beating Chien-Pao every time. You're not going to be beating Charizard every time. So really, what's the point in playing the deck? And if you get a mediocre draw even, you kind of just sit there and do nothing, or your deck just collapses. Because you need so many energy against decks like Charizard. And I don't even think you beat Charizard because you need way too much. And I think that it's really just variance is why I think people think that the general consensus is Lugia beats Charizard when it's actually unfavored.
Exactly. And that's kind of the way I've been thinking of it too, is that if you do set up and you do the thing, great, you're doing awesome. And then you have to consistently just monitor your resources of energy to make sure you have knockout after knockout after knockout. And you're already trying to rack your brain in those first opening turns to get the combo to work and then go from there. But there's too many Lugia believers out there that I have to appease them from this question. So Collin, what do you think could potentially up the consistency of Lugia into maybe some cups or challenges? Obviously, it takes a pretty okay matchup to Lost Zone boxes because you could put Snorlax in there. But any other tech conclusions? Are we playing Great Balls in this list again, plus the Master Ball?
I think you should be playing the Great Balls if you are choosing to sleeve up Lugia. I am highly suggesting not to sleeve up Lugia. But
it is a choice that people can.
It is a choice. But I think you should probably just play make sure you play as many ball counts as you can of like Great Ball, Ultra Ball, and like Aroma, and play your Master Ball, because that deck is such a pile. You need as much consistency as possible.
I'll say it once and I'll say it again. If I wanted to lose to Charizard EX, I'd just play Turbo Iron Hands. But, as far as it goes, the deck is still kind of on the chopping block, in and out of the meta, seems to be doing okay in some online events. So there's still some believers out there, and props to you. There's always got to be those believers just supporting a deck. But you know what? Wait a couple weeks and trust me, you'll have a better deck again.
Legacy Energy is amazing.
Legacy Energy is good.
That card is really good. Card's really good. Play Lugia in a few weeks. Play Lugia in a few weeks.
It's just a couple weeks.
Leave it in the binder for a few weeks. You're good.
Yeah, you're fine. Just wrap it up with a bow and you can open it up for NAIC. Anyway, moving on from talking about these decks and some meta shifts, we'll get to the good juice of the meta forecast here in just a second, but now we're going to talk about what we expect to see this weekend. So whether you're at Cups, Challenges, or at the regionals, what are going to be the top 3 decks showing up there? And you can have differing opinions here, guys, if you think more decks are going to show up at Cups and Challenges over a regionals. But I want to know top 3 meta shares. We'll go back to you, Ian. What do you think your top 3 meta shares are going to be for this weekend?
I think Storm's pretty simplistic with those most popular. It's going to be 100%. It's going to be Charizard 1, Chien-Pao 2, and then third, I would say Lost Zone as a whole.
Okay.
Certain weekends, I'd say it'd be Ancient Box plus like the Roaring Moon to Dunsparce deck, but that's really fallen off in popularity.
Yeah.
Because taking a bad matchup against the most popular deck in format is not really a good idea.
Seems pretty good to not sleeve it up against the Charizard meta. And Collin, what would your top 3 decks for this weekend be most played?
For top 2 for sure is Zari, Chien-Pao. Those have been consistently the top 2 decks. And I would probably say I think Lost Zone. I don't know about in general Lost Zone. I think Tina would probably still be more popular, even though with all these other builds that are going around. But I still think Tina would probably be a little more of a popular variant of it.
Gotcha.
But
I would agree with that. I think that Charizard for the regionals for sure would definitely be number 1, and Chien-Pao's, close second regardless. So I think that when we're looking at Cups and Challenges, I would say that that's kind of flip-flopped. I would say a lot more people are apt to play Chien-Pao at a Cup, especially at a smaller Cup, just to hit the variance. But Charizard's really close, if not equal to it. But I'd say if you're going to a smaller local event, you might see a little bit more Chien-Pao. I would agree with Ian too. That third is probably, right in that Lost Zone pocket. Definitely playing some comfies and whatever lists that you see. I could see some people, again, looking at local metas, I could see some people playing the turbo decks that are out there, the turbo Roaring Moons, the turbo Iron Hands, any of that stuff, just because it's fun. And people want to get their last couple of championship points, or they just want some store credit at these events because they already have their invite. So we could see a lot of the fun decks start to show up like that for sure. With that being said, let's talk about fun decks. This is my favorite part of the meta forecast. We're going to talk about the fun decks. I see you rubbing your hands, Ian. So
yeah, rubbing the hands, Ian. I'm a little excited.
There's a really good deck I like.
Oh, perfect. So we'll start with you, Ian. What's a fun deck that you want to see succeed this weekend? Maybe do top 8 at a regional, something like that.
A deck I actually see make a deep run is Cramorant Cloth, the Barrel.
Ooh,
Crisis
okay.
Punch. Yep. I faced one at 9-3 at Indianapolis, and it's actually a pretty cool deck because if the Charizard opponent doesn't know what's going on, you have a really cool combo of a Crisis Punch on a Cramorant plus a Kabalion, and then Hisuian Sneasler plus a Brute Bonnet that does 330, or 340 even. So that one shots a Charizard, they don't know what's going on, and you just have a bunch of one prize Pokemon that can knock out anything or two-shot anything. So it can go far. It can go far if opponent doesn't know what's going on, which will probably be most of your opponents because the deck is still very much under the radar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I saw that James Cox was playing it months ago back on their stream. But as far as at a regionals, I believe it day 2'd, right? At day 2.
It did, yes.
Yeah. So that's
I hit
the
it
list.
9-3, pretty deep. You could have made top 8.
Yeah. So hey, it might be a real deck if more people start playing it. Collin, what do you want to see succeed for fun decks category?
For fun decks, oh man, that's a good one. I'm just kidding. Not no. I think I want to say I think that the Dino Box like for the fun deck, because that deck is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Even though just dodge all the Charizard, you might be okay.
Yeah.
But if you use dodge Charizard all day,
just put 30 ancient cards in the Lost Zone. You're fine, or in the discard.
Lost Zone, I do
put them in the Lost Zone.
Damage.
Even better. That's where they belong. But no, I can see a lot of people playing Dino Box for sure. At these cups and challenges, because it's a fun single prize deck. People love the fun single prize decks. I would love to see it do something different. Our very own Cyrus did make a list that she won a challenge with that had the other Screamtail in there, just because it's a 1 energy retreat pivot. So it was pretty cool to see that adapt a little bit more and see some changes in the list overall. So if you haven't checked that out, you can always go over to her Twitter and scope out that deck list. But I'm going to go out on a tangent here. And I did see another Lost Zone style list that beat the living crap out of me on the ladder and in a online tournament twice throughout the past week. And it was Rotom VSTAR. And I did not understand why I was seeing Rotom evolve in a deck. But I think that this deck is hilarious because there's so many cool things that can happen with it. Obviously, it's just getting tools in the discard and then putting them into the Lost Zone, doing a crazy amount of damage. It can definitely hit 330 as far as damage output pretty easily. But because it's putting things in the Lost Zone and you can play Colress's Experiment, it's got the Cramorant as a single prize attacker. So you've got these backup single prize attackers coming out of nowhere, attacking for no energy as you're loading up energy. It's got EXP share, lots of cool things that you can do. And then everything should be hunky-dory as far as doing the rest of your game plan. Not too many Pokemon are weak to lightning anymore, but it is cool. Plus, Rotom V does draw cards. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I think if you want to play a spicy deck, look into Rotom VSTAR. It's pretty cool. It takes a pretty good matchup into any sort of 2-prize decks for sure. But something different that I was experiencing, and I like different every once in a while. So that's going to be pretty much it, wrapping it up for this shorter meta forecast. And you can always check us out again here on the channel. Next week, we're going to be talking about LA regionals coming up, so that we're also going to prepare for the new meta after that. But if you like any of the meta forecast counts that we're doing here, or meta forecast videos rather, definitely stick around on the channel, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and that way you can get notified when more videos like this do come out. You can also check out all of our sponsors below and tell them Shuffle Squad sent you. Why not? Might as well check out those links. That way it helps us out here on the channel, helps you out getting some cool stuff at a discounted rate as well. I'm going to leave it to these guys here to give their intros and shout outs to whoever they want. Collin, we'll go back to you. Collin, who do you want to shout out here, and where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Flynoid, FLYNOID. Again, that's Flynoid. I want to shout out, of course, everyone in the kitchen, the Lost Zone kitchen, for being awesome dudes and being a great testing group. And then all my locals, of course, that continually support me.
Yeah, Chi-Town area.
Chi-Town area, yes.
And then we'll kick it over to you, Ian. Any shout outs, and where can people find you online?
Of course, shout out the Shuffle Squad. Shout out my friends helping test, and find me online. You can always see me on Twitter, or I guess X, at Ian _ Robb. And yeah.
Cool. You can also check out coaching from a lot of the Shuffle Squad members. You can always check out the Metafy links that are on our website at theshufflesquad.com. You can also view some of our merchandise there. So that's all I have to say here. You know my name. I'm PJ here on the Shuffle Squad, and we will catch you next time.